Hello, everybody. Welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join us to react to the announcement that Steve Bruce has been appointed West Brom manager. You can see on the Baggies website there, it says 13 hours ago. I was doing my Patreon roundtable last night, the second this broke. So that was 7 p.m. last night. We know the timeline was that the previous day at sort of lunchtime, 2:30 time. First of all, Valerian Ismael was sacked. And secondly, probably more pertinently, Ron Gourlay was named as the new CEO, I think was the job title, over at West Brom. So the discussion now, I'm afraid, has to move away from Valerian Ismael and was he hard done to, and move on to Steve Bruce. And we were having a debate. We were live in the stream. Apologies, I'm not live today. It is 7:43 in the morning, and we're just catching up with this news. So you can get your comments in after the fact. But the big debate was West Brom essentially have got a window of 2 years while they've got those parachute payments to try and leverage that extra money and obviously get promoted. They managed to do it last time, didn't they, in 2 years with Darren Moore. Well, echoes of this season, really. Darren Moore being in there, getting 9 points adrift of the automatics. Jimmy Shan took it as caretaker, and then Bilic got them up. So the conversation was, do you go for somebody very short term, literally to try and push and get them over the line, probably in the playoffs, frankly, this season? Or do you go for like an 18-month sort of project? Someone said in the chat, can you not get the best of both worlds? Maybe the idea of this hire is the best of both worlds. And, well, we'll talk about Steve Bruce and why he would have been hired. The first thing I will say is, look, I'm looking for balanced and sensible comments about Steve Bruce because it just got ridiculous in up at Newcastle. I understand totally the frustrations of the Newcastle fans, given the kind of absentee ownership that they were experiencing. And Steve Bruce was obviously, and I've seen this at my club at Ipswich, where Marcus Evans was a kind of absentee owner and Mick McCarthy was sent out in front of everybody. And of course, in the end, Mick McCarthy did become the lightning rod for everybody's criticism. I think Steve Bruce became the lightning rod for everybody's criticism at Newcastle. When I say lightning rod, that's not to say he did nothing wrong or he couldn't have done anything better, but he was put in the position front and centre where he was pretty much responsible for, he was the face of the club and running everything, whilst Mike Ashley basically wanted out and is now out. So all I'm saying is, can we try and feel free to criticise Steve Bruce, managerial style, whatever, but yeah, let's try and keep it within the bounds of good taste, because it really has gone past that with Bruce sometimes, and hopefully we can do that here on the channel. Let's read from the statement over on the Baggies website. West Brom delighted to announce the appointment of Steve Bruce, the experienced boss. I mean, that's an understatement. We'll look at his career. With 4 promotions to his name, we'll talk about them as well. Signed an 18-month contract at the Hawthorns, and he's brought his usual guys: Stephen Clement, Stephen Agnew, Alex Bruce has joined, James Morrison, Gary Walsh. So classic Bruce. He always has Clements and Agnew there, doesn't he? Some quotes from Ron Gourlay: highly respected, impressive record of earning promotions to Premier League, excellent man management skills, tactical nous, etc. Ability to hit the ground running. Promotion remains our objective this season. We're confident with Steve leaving the club, we've given us, leading the club, giving ourselves every chance. Bruce, some quotes from him: delighted to have the opportunity to manage a club that has such a great history. It's a club I know well from the time in the Midlands. I did not envisage I would return to management this quickly, but once I got the phone call from Ron, I knew I could not resist the challenge. I'm coming in with one aim, and that is to get Albion to the Premier League. And we're in binary mode again here, aren't we? We say this a lot with parachute teams. They either get promoted or they don't. With every other club, we can talk about, did they go up the table slightly? Is the recruitment churn working? Is the squad improving gradually? Is the manager getting better? All of that stuff. with the teams that get relegated and, still have those Premier League payments, they've just got to get up by whatever means necessary. Now, you can call that short-termist thinking, and it is, isn't it? It's here's the end of the window of payments, get up. Or, well, look, the reverse of that is I think they wanted, was Valerian Ismael even long-term, really? Because he worked very fast at Barnsley. And maybe the thing with Valerian Ismael, sorry, I said I wasn't going to talk too much about that, was it either works or it doesn't with him. It worked at Barnsley. It didn't work at West Brom. Maybe I'm in binary terms there. Let's have a quick look at the table and the state of play for Steve Bruce to see specifically what he has got to do. Now, I heard an interesting bit from Simon Jordan on the radio yesterday saying, and he knows Steve Bruce very well because he had him at Palace, didn't he? Saying Bruce is a pragmatist in more ways than one. We know he's a pragmatist on the pitch, as in he can set a team up not to lose. And I think that was the contention with a lot of Newcastle fans. It was stay in the league. But that was the job, wasn't it, under Mike Ashley? The job here is different. And of course, in terms of Bruce at Newcastle in the Premier League, the expectations of that squad were, can you get towards the top of the bottom half or anywhere? And look where they are now, and the fact that they've needed a lot of transfers. It's one of those where maybe it wasn't pretty, but when you weigh up the quality of the squad, the expectations, and where they actually finished, as much as Newcastle fans kind of don't like it, that to an owner, that adds up as a good job. I'm not saying it was exciting to watch again. Let me pop that up on the screen. So that is the current championship table. West Brom not in good form, but in 6th position. Obviously, you can see a couple of teams immediately below them with games in hand. The long and the short of it is if you go completely tunnel vision, remove every other team, West Brom have played 29 games and they've got 45 points. We normally, the 10-year average tells us 85 points will get you into the top 2. So assume the 10-year average will hold out. It may not, but it gives us a number to work from. That would mean Bruce would need 40 points from 17 games to get automatic promotion. So 40 points from 17 games would be 12 wins, 4 draws and a defeat. That's not going to happen, is it? Come on, let's be honest. Unless we get a low tide and he gets close to that. Okay, you never know. I don't think that's going to happen. Can he get the 72 points? Probably slightly more, I think, looking at the makeup of the table to get into the playoffs. Yes, I would suspect he can. That is 32 points from the remaining 17 games. And then, we'll see what happens, won't we? Let's just have a quick look at what he's got to work with, because the argument is that if he's got the players, he will play on the front foot. And if he hasn't, he won't. I suspect maybe some Villa fans would disagree with what I've just said, because he did have the players at Villa, didn't he? And it was still quite pragmatic. I was at the second leg of that playoff semi-final. God, Bruce v. Pulis. And we'll talk about his history in a sec. But look, I'm saying I was at the second leg of the playoff semi-final. It was very pragmatic. What happened? He got to the final, didn't he? And then came up against Jukanovic and Kenny and Mitrovic and Sessegnon and all those boys, and didn't get Aston Villa ultimately promoted. There's the squad, and please don't tell me you can't fashion a decent championship team out of that lot. England goalkeeper there in Sam Johnston, Clark, Bartley. Ajayi's been promoted before, hasn't he, with Baggies? People like Reach, he would have had Reach at Wednesday before, wouldn't he? Townsend and Furlong, decent fullbacks. Phillips, Livermore, he would have had before at Hull. Mollenby's decent. And then across the front, and this was the problem with Ismael, he didn't get any kind of tune out of this lot up the top. Dean Garner, Zahor Lessa. I don't know if he's been loaned out, has he? We don't hear him mentioned very often. But Callum Robinson, Carlin Grant, Andy Carroll might not be too pleased to see Brucey, but there you go. Daryl DK as well was the big signing. So that was the whole issue for Ismael, was that this gross underperformance of the XG and the chances they were creating. I think they've actually had, I don't know, it was very close. I think they've actually had more shots than Fulham this season, having played a game more and scored literally half as many goals. So there's the issues that need to be solved for sure. Let me just bring up Bruce's Wikipedia. Look, I won't go chapter and verse through his entire career. The first thing to say, and look, I'm coming across as some Steve Bruce apologist. All I want is for people to understand that he's had a hell of a career, hasn't he? And whether his powers are waning compared to what they were, or whether it was exciting at Newcastle or Villa, you do need to kind of respect he was a hell of a player. Scored tons of goals. I remember scoring like 20 goals in one season for Man United. Anyway, sorry, let me just make that bigger. There you go. If you look over on the right-hand side, you can see all the teams he's managed. Sheffield United, Huddersfield, Wigan, Palace. Now, I believe the first promotions come there at Birmingham. I think he gets Birmingham promoted twice, doesn't he? Possibly once through the playoffs and once through the automatics. Fact check me on that, guys. Sorry if I'm wrong. And then Sunderland. And I want to focus on the last decade because I think that gives us the best rule of thumb on Steve Bruce. So Hull, Villa, Wednesday and Newcastle. Hull, he was there for 4 seasons. He got them promoted twice. So, look, we've had plenty of clubs hire people that have got previous promotions. Plenty of clubs, mine included, Paul Jewell, Roy Keane, Mick McCarthy, they'd all had promotions. And so, look, having a promotion on your CV doesn't, guarantee anything. It doesn't do any harm, does it, for sure? But he took Hull up twice. The second one in the playoffs in 15-16. Remember Mo Diame scoring that goal. Villa, I think we would all agree, ultimately has to go down as a chance missed, doesn't it? So Villa were relegated. They had Robbie Di Matteo at the start. Bruce came in the first season, so we can give him a little bit of a pass, but I suppose not when you leverage the size of Villa against the Championship and the fact that in that January, God, they spent a ton of money, didn't they? I won't remember all the names. Codger came in for a load, didn't he? Hogan from Brentford, a couple from Barnsley, Hurahan and Brie. It felt like they went and bought up, like Newcastle did with Rafa, loads of the best Championship players. It was the next season where he missed out, 17-18. So look, Wolves were away and clear, weren't they? What I think we'd all admit is that Cardiff finishing second, that was the opportunity, wasn't it? Because that was a bit of a masterful performance by Neil Warnock to get Cardiff to finish second with that team in that season. Fulham came late, Villa finished fourth, and as I said, beat Borough in the playoff semis and then lost in the final to a really good Fulham team. But that was chance lost, and then it kind of soured the next season, and he was replaced by Dean Smith, who won the playoffs. So, Villa might not be a tick in the box for Bruce. Sheffield Wednesday probably is. And I think Sheffield Wednesday, if you want an upside, if you're a West Brom fan who's a bit worried about this hire and you want some evidence of Steve Bruce coming in at pretty much exactly this time. In fact, it is, isn't it? I looked it up just before we started. February the 1st, he was announced, but there is a caveat there. February the 1st he started. He was announced. I think Josh Lahukai got sacked in late December and Bruce was announced. And then there was he had some personal troubles, didn't he? I think he lost both of his parents in quite short order, had a break. And Sheffield Wednesday was 17th when he took over. They finished 11th. He had 18 games, go figure. And what's he got? 19 this season. So he actually got 29 points from a Sheffield Wednesday team that are not as good as this West Brom team. And they went up the table. Only the 3 promotion teams and, ironically, West Brom scored more points than Sheffield Wednesday at the end of that season. And if we do some quick maths, if he were to get 29 points, he's got 17 games. So roughly that amount, he probably will get in the playoffs. You're looking at 73, 74, 75 points if you the extra game that he had then. So there's the there's the good example of Bruce being able to come in very quickly, knows exactly what he's doing, doesn't he? His way around a football club. He's been doing it for decades, for goodness sakes. And that's the upside. Can he go in, have the players eating out the palm of his hands, get a little bit of a lift? And, we all know, look, you do the maths, they're sixth. A little bit of a lift is one place. The fifth, they're in the playoffs. And then away we go. Of course, the playoffs are absolutely not a lottery, contrary to the nonsense you hear to that end. But by that, I mean, normally the best team wins the playoffs or the team with the most momentum. It's absolutely not random chance like a lottery would be. And if he's trending in the right way and he's got good players and he's got good resources, of course, he can win the playoffs. So we'll see. The Newcastle thing, well, it was 2 seasons in the Premier League, wasn't it? Some would argue he bailed on Sheffield Wednesday. And this is where we don't want to be too simplistic about it. But if you are simplistic about it, 13th and 12th with Newcastle is success, isn't it, in the Premier League in the Mike Ashley era? Obviously, it's not that simple. There's a lot more nuance. But all I would say is a lot of the other nonsense at Newcastle, some of it was Bruce's fault. Yes, relationships and style of football and all of that. Some of the reason the Newcastle fans weren't happy was perhaps down to Bruce. But I think there's 10 years, probably, I don't know how long Ashley was there, 10, 15 years, something like that, of built up frustration with the Newcastle fans there. And yes, they were very much letting it out. So look, that's chapter and verse on Steve Bruce. Get your comments in on the hire. I know a lot of people won't be excited by this, which is fine. People are entitled to their opinion. What I don't particularly want is for their opinion to just be purely, like I said, anyone can think anything. We do believe in freedom of speech, of course, and freedom of thought. But if the opinion is just based on the fact that Bruce has been around ages and it's not very new and not very exciting, well, okay, fine. The question is, can he do the job? And at Hull, he very much did the job. Places like Wigan and Birmingham, he did. Newcastle, he did. Sheffield Wednesday, he did. In terms of what was the brief, did he do it? Villa, okay, we can put that down as a cross in that one. Villa are a gigantic club, and if you've got Villa in the Championship and some of the resources, you should be getting them. You're getting them up, and he didn't. So maybe we can put a cross in there. And we are holding him to a high standard there. But hey, big clubs in the Championship should be held to a high standard, frankly. So getting the job done. If he gets the job done here, that means he keeps them in the playoffs and he wins the playoffs. And then if he doesn't, can he do a promotion next season? And remember, another 3-year one parachute teams drop into the Championship and it gets harder and harder and harder. And maybe you need to sell a couple of players and balance the books for the potential doomsday scenario that these clubs have of running out of the parachute payments. So personally, I don't mind it, the hire. I understand why. I'm not going to try and play all sides here, but I understand why Ron Gourlay would bring in Steve Bruce. It's the classic safe pair of hands, and it's a reaction to Ismael, who they had, who was evidently, kind of new and far less experienced despite his success at Barnsley the previous season. I also understand a little bit why West Brom fans would think, on the basis of relationships perhaps at Newcastle, and we do think a cross in the box rather than a tick in the box at Villa. I do understand scepticism. So, that would be my thoughts on Steve Bruce in as West Brom manager. What I would love to hear in very simplistic terms, if you don't mind, so we get a good debate. And look, let's not slag the guy off or anything personal or any stuff about his appearance. That's unnecessary. If you don't think he's the man for the job, that's totally cool. Tell me why. If you do, tell me why. Also, if you don't think he's the man, tell me who you think would have been the man who they could have got at this point. Because I think that has to be part of the conversation. February, window closed, Championship, who's available, who could they have got? So do you know what I'm saying? I think we have a fine if your opinions, it shouldn't have been Bruce. But I think the next question anyone would naturally ask is, okay, who instead? And could they have got him? So, I think we'll get an interesting debate going in the comments. I know Bruce can be quite divisive. So yeah, all I ask is that, don't slag the guy off and have a go at his appearance, and say what you like about his football managerial style or whatever. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Steve Bruce, West Brom. How is this going to go? I keep saying it's binary. Will he get them promoted this season? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Baggies fans and fans of any team, get your views in. Thanks for watching. Over and out. Good morning.